I was having this chat with a client literally the other day, and he used this terminology. He got it from someone called Peter Cronin, and apparently it comes from someone else before that. But it was this idea of zone of excellence and
Okay.
zone of genius.
Okay.
And it really tied into the session we were having. But essentially, it's this idea that you can get stuck in your zone of excellence. And this is where you're having real success. People are probably validating you for it. And, it ties into that idea of golden handcuffs. You're doing really well,
Yeah.
but it's not it. It's not the full expression of who you want to be. It's not your full gift. And in the situation we were speaking through, for him, it's being a really competent sales manager, managing
Okay.
multiple teams, um, and getting constant opportunities for new offers, for better offers, for offers where he's making more and doing less and less and less, right? And that's kind of the dream we were speaking about. If he had seen where he was, 5 years ago, he'd
Hmm.
just be like, oh, in awe of where he's at.
Hmm.
And yet there was a degree of almost not even disappointment, but like there could be more.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where we enter the session and we explore this idea of zone of genius,
Hmm.
right? The area where he's really living his natural gifts. He's
Yeah.
doing kind of a highest expression of what he would like to bring to the world,
Yeah.
and doing that in a way that also um, allows him to receive, right? Allows
Mhm.
him to actually make money too.
Yeah.
And what was really, really fascinating was just noticing that it wasn't even about pushing beyond the excellence of a genius to the genius. It was more about noticing what are those small things that are kind of getting in the way, those little patterns. We can see them as shadow patterns or
Yeah.
constructs. And what emerged for him was this kind of tallest poppy syndrome
Interesting.
of this criticalness and judgment
Okay.
of him like being so much,
Yeah.
right? Of him being, reaching his highest capacity,
Mm.
whatever that may be.
Yeah.
It was almost like the excellence was safe and okay and isn't really bothering anyone. But his real genius is might be a little bit dangerous, might be a little bit
Okay.
um, too much for people.
Okay.
And so we went through the introject release of that, where we gave that back to where it came from, this criticalness, this judgment. And what was really cool was just this open space emerged.
Hmm.
And instead of the previous parts of it kind of been fighting, when there was this space, it just became obvious for both of them that they can still use where they're at, but they can springboard into this genius, into what they actually want to do.
Yeah.
And it led to all these amazing, very practical ideas of how he can actually do it,
Yeah.
which weren't available before. And it kind of leads as well into something we've heard from a mentor of ours of this idea of the upper comfort zone,
Yeah.
of sometimes we don't just like fall into pain, but sometimes we're limiting our bliss,
Yeah.
or we're limiting our success, or we're limiting our, genius in this case.
Hmm.
And it is so common when we're going through that there will always be a reason why we can't go a little bit higher.
Mm.
There's a reason why we can't experience that too. That's too much.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something beautifully just when we were speaking about how that shows up for you and your clients and kind of having it all.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious if you want to share anything on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how it shows up. It's the same issue, kind of shows up in different ways. How it shows up for a lot of the people that I work with it's this idea of not having to do anything anymore in order to be enough, in order to be competent, in order to be
Yeah.
worthy, in order to be confident, right? In order to feel fulfilled. So it's so common that people, they come from a paradigm of really needing to do a lot. And that comes from also just earlier stages of development, if you want to look at it from a developmental psychology lens or model, where we feel like we have to achieve, or it's not always like that. It does come from shadow originally. If you feel like you need something external in order to validate something internal about yourself, that comes from shadow. That's hijacking right there. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how validation and validating yourself can work, which me and Cameron have had a lot of conversations about because that's a kind of another big general theme that we can really go into. If you guys want to hear that on the next episode, maybe like really unpack what validation is, I think that could be a great episode. But it basically comes from realizing that you don't have to do any of these things in order to feel competent and worthy. You can just give that to yourself without being delusional or narcissistic, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like this idea of doing something, it keeps you humble, it keeps you honest. If we want to talk about the
Mm.
upper comfort zone, which is something I meant one of our mentors, Kim Barter, talks about, it's almost like a way of regulating your upper comfort zone. Like, oh yeah, I
Right.
can't feel that good because I didn't do X, Y, and Z, you know?
Yeah.
Like I didn't win this competition, or I didn't get this pay rise, or I didn't go for this, I didn't go for that. And how it comes to the story that you just talked about is I've been working with these clients for a couple of years now, and they've gone through many different metamorphoses over the years. But one of them was moving from this zone of excellence, as you talk about, as that gentleman Peter Crone talks about, zone of excellence, zone of genius. It was they were in their zone of excellence. They were fully licensed medical doctors that were working in Germany at the time, right? This is not an easy thing to get to. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. A lot of people don't make it through medical school, if we're being totally honest. However, it was the situation of golden handcuffs, where they have like a good job, stable job. Also, in those kind of more organized professions, there's like a clear pathway of hierarchy. If you just stay in there, which gets you pay rises, all that kind of stuff, you're never going to be out of work. It's quite rewarding work as well. You're helping people. Even though the thing that they picked, these two clients that I was working with, was kind of more of a backseat professional rather than really jumping into it because of this problem that I'm about to talk about, which was even though it was good in all of these ways, the thing that really bothered them was the fact that it wasn't if they really put their mind to it, it was a good outcome, but it wasn't their ideal outcome, you know,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And that's what I think you were just speaking to a lot of people, which was you can get trapped in your good outcome. There's that old saying, which is, don't let the good be the enemy of the great.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to make too much of a big deal out of that. Although if you are doing that, it is almost a more nefarious trap than just being in pain all of the time. Because at least then you can't really delude yourself. I'm not saying you can't
Mm.
fully. The human mind will always try and delude itself if it has certain shadows. But if you're in the good area, the zone of excellence, so to say, but there's just something is missing, like, oh, I have good pay, but my relationships suffer. Or I have good
Yeah.
relationships, people I work with work at great, the pay is great, but I don't actually have that much time for myself.
Yeah.
You were so close to the finish line, you know? There's nothing, you don't have to limit any part of that. You can have it all, truly. Truly. For like 99% of people. If you want to become like a multi-billionaire, or you want to, I don't know, do something that's really difficult in sports, maybe something does have to suffer. Who knows, right? If you're trying to get to something which is untold difficult and it requires so
Yeah.
much, all of your time and energy. It's not the same for 99.9% of people. And even in those cases, you can still have it all. It's just a little bit more difficult. But there's
Yeah.
nothing in you which is like limiting that. So if you're listening to this and you feel like, oh wow, subtly maybe I do have this worldview that I can't ask for too much. I have a tall poppy syndrome. I've already gotten so much, shouldn't I just be grateful? Well, you can be grateful and then you can still look at what you don't have and try and integrate.
Yeah.
Not from a place of being, oh, I don't have that, therefore I'm a bad person, or I don't have that, therefore, you know, I
Yeah.
something's wrong. It's more like, okay, yeah, like why should I not have relationships, my health, my development, my finances all in order? You
Yeah.
know? I used to have this a lot actually in the UK, and Cameron's from the UK as well, although at this point we didn't know each other. Which is like there's almost like this weird scarcity around all of that stuff. You know, like this weird. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
you had this growing up, Cameron, but it was definitely around the area which I grew up or the people that I associated with, which is like in order to do something you love, like you have to sacrifice money, or in order
Mm.
to get money, you
Yeah.
have to sacrifice happiness, health,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it speaks to that tall poppy syndrome you were talking about, actually. What I did have a
Yeah.
question about, though, what about the story you just told, was what is it that was preventing this person from having that breakthrough before you had that session together?
Yeah.
Maybe
It's a
that could
great
be useful for
question.
people listening, you know?
Yeah. And it kind of brings us back to what you were sharing about. It's not about creating a pressure that you need to like reach some crazy high.
Yeah,
It's just wondering what's it like when you take off the cage,
yeah,
both down and above,
yeah,
right? That's making you feel like you have to go there, but also making you feel like you can't go there.
yeah,
I'm wondering what happens, right? And for a lot of people, some really cool stuff happens when you let it fully liberated.
yeah.
And so the same thing happened here. And this is someone I've done a fair amount of work with. And what's interesting is with this person, a lot of the patterns and introjects come from a person, like a very same person in their life, right? It come from a lot from the same person who had been
Okay.
a little bit of a challenge for them growing up. But then what was so interesting is that this one was the first time that it came from actually a very different person in their life. It
Wow.
was the first introject we had explored of going back to that person.
Okay.
And it was really, really beautiful to see how big of a shift that was,
Mm,
right? And in fact, it actually created a little bit of, ooh, this is new territory kind of
yeah,
feeling, right?
yeah,
You've probably experienced it with your clients, yourself, where you give away something that's very like you almost didn't realize it was there. You were unaware to it, which is
yeah,
where he was at the beginning. And then you see it and then you give it back and it goes to a little bit of a different place than usual,
yeah,
right? It's not like you're building on all the work you've done. It's like almost a new strand.
yeah,
And then you see what's there. And it's like, whoa, this is a whole new energy that I hadn't experienced before.
yeah.
A whole new part of me that it was almost daunting for this person.
Wow.
And that's not a bad thing at all. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing because we have a little bit of innocence sometimes when it's a completely new part of ourselves, a
yeah,
completely new energy for us. And in fact, that's a wonderful thing because usually it means that the breakthrough can be just really, really transformational.
yeah,
And that's what happened here. We went from that unawareness of, you know, we're talking about a symptom. I kind of keep taking all these really great opportunities, right? Like you said, the good is the enemy of the great. All these good opportunities. But when it comes to really doing my own thing that I feel a real passion for,
yeah,
I'm not taking that step and I don't know why.
yeah,
I don't know what's happening there. And so we became aware. And it wasn't actually these, because originally it was like this parts issue. One part wants to kind of be comfortable and we're doing really well. We don't need
Mm.
to upset it.
Yeah.
And the other part is like, well, I want to reach for the stars, or I want to dream big. I want to do, I'm already doing great. That's wonderful. I appreciate all I've done, but I want to keep going because I've got some real ambition in my heart.
Hmm.
And yet, what was interesting, it wasn't even a split issue. There was a subtle judgment for that part, right? That part that wanted to dream real big, that wanted to really bring these ideas to fruition. And it was only when there was an awareness of the criticalness. And he's like, oh, I'm like judging that part.
Mm.
That's when we noticed the interject. I'm like, well, where did that come from? And he goes, oh, it came from this person, which was very new, right? As a person, but we haven't even discussed at all in the amount of time we worked together.
Yeah.
And so we went from awareness to kind of symptom to a new awareness of a an internal process that was creating dysfunction with the introject, and then to conscious conceptualization where they had been taken from. I mean, it was very simple. We gave it back, and this real wonderful space emerged. And and from there, the two parts that had been kind of in conflict, it became easy for them. They weren't in conflict anymore.
Okay.
It wasn't seen that,
What were they in
you
conflict
know,
about?
well, originally they were in conflict of one part wants more safety and protection. We're doing good.
Ah,
Let's not
okay.
rock the boat.
Yeah.
And other parts like, I want to crush it. I want to dream big. But when this criticalness was removed, it was almost like removing a covert contract, right? This idea that to reach for my dream, that I somehow have to be like in a real fear state and I have to let go of all that I've built. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh no, I can reach for that from this high level that I'm already at.
Hmm.
It was like they couldn't see that before because of this subtle judgment of this kind of tall poppy syndrome, this critical nurse. And the parts were in conflict because they believed that they had to be one or the other.
Hmm.
I think that's such a key theme here of that covert contract of one or the other. You know, like you spoke about in England, of I have to be successful and rich, but I have to be unhappy.
Yeah.
I have to be happy, but I have to kind of like just take scraps.
Yeah.
I just kind of get by. Even if
Yeah.
I'm at a good job, I kind of have to like still be struggling a little bit,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or I have to have a great relationship. And that means I can't work on my business and build my dreams.
Yeah.
They somehow cancel each other out.
Yeah.
And so once that contract, which was part of the criticalness, was removed,
Yeah.
the parts were like, oh, cool. We can keep crushing it, keep being in excellence, and from excellence, reach to genius. Right? It's cool. We can do it all. We don't
Hmm.
have to be in some scarcity or fear state to
Yeah.
like jump. We can just, the stairs are already here. We're at the top of the stairs. And now we just build a new staircase.
Hmm.
And then what started happening was all these very practical ideas emerged. Oh, I can actually do that, which is going to make that super easy. And that already works within the system, but I already have the work that I'm doing in my excellence.
Hmm.
I can just build off this. Really practical ideas.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to
Yeah.
bring that into my meeting. That's going to make this really easy.
So what did his zone of genius look like that was different to his zone of excellence?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to be fairly vague. I don't want to give too much
Okay.
information away, but it kind of looked like going from running high level teams to I actually want to build my thing. I want to not just run other people's teams, work in these amazing companies, right? I was running on free teams right now. I want to do my own thing, right? I have the experience, I have the skill. People are already asking for mentorship from me,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go out there and put myself out there to actually do this for real, right? Do this in my way. And that was his genius of I want to do my thing. I want to
Yeah.
be creative with content and working with really high level clients one on one because that's where I thrive and that's where
Nice.
what I love to do, right? And so that was his genius, and that was his move from excellence, is
Mm-hmm.
kind of moving into that and building a foundation for that to be a reality.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love and what I think we're really speaking about here is removing the either or
Right.
and just replacing it with yes and.
Yeah.
You know, you put it perfectly, having it all.
Yeah. Having it all. Exactly.
Yeah. And the other one, and I'm curious your perspective on this is often we see it as limitations. It's like a limitation for the next money, like amount of money. And
Mm-hmm.
that's true, right? That's part of it. We can grow to be and remove these barriers so we can reach the next level in your business
Yeah.
or your teams or whatever it may be. But I think it's also about doing it holistically,
Mm.
which you were speaking about of I can have it all in all areas. I don't need to be 99% in one and 1% in one.
Yeah.
There's no pie to cut,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it was you or someone said it to me recently. It was like the universe, it has no bank account, right? It's
Yeah.
just got an unlimited bank account.
Yeah. That doesn't sound
And
like
and
me.
that's
That's
no, it
probably
doesn't
someone
sound like
else.
I think that was
Yeah.
actually from this session I was just describing. Yeah, it was like
Ah, okay.
it was like the universe has a unlimited bank account.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't have
Wow.
to have and or, sorry,
Yeah.
either or. I can have it all.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when you look at it from that when that perspective emerges,
Mm.
you gain energy.
Yeah.
It's like
100%.
you're just thriving from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
You're really enjoying the process of building a business, which makes it easier.
Yeah.
And then you maybe go into your relationship with a lightness and a joy, which makes it easier.
Yeah. Who would
And
have
then
thought?
the relationship goes really well because you're in lightness and joy, which means that you're kind of springing into your business
Yeah.
in the same way
Yeah.
or into whatever you like doing outside of your business,
Yeah.
whether it's a sport, whatever it may be. And so I'm curious if you have any thoughts about this, because I know that there's definitely experience there.
Yeah. I feel like whenever you're limiting yourself, you're always taking energy away from yourself or
Mm,
empowerment away from yourself. Whenever there's like no matter how subtle the limitation is, right? Like from my own personal story, it was almost like you can't have that. You can't have it all. Well, it's definitely you can't have it all, especially around making money in general, right?
mm,
Just because that was the thing which people around me struggled with the most, or and also some relationship stuff as well. But whenever there's such a tendency, which I saw see in myself and also basically all of the dozens of clients that I've worked with over the past few years, there's almost like a tendency to think that being a little bit negative is more realistic than being a little bit positive. Have you noticed
yeah.
that? It's such a
Oh yeah. It's
strange
like,
cognitive bias that people have that I see so
yeah,
myself. I'm not trying to say that I didn't have this to
yeah.
begin with. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, this kind of relates to me, like how can I investigate this for myself? What you can do is you can see like, do I have that underlying assumption right now?
Mm,
Underlying unconscious assumption that actually to be a little bit on the safe side, I have to be a little bit more negative than positive. And then if
yeah.
you do have that assumption, obviously me and Cameron right now are adding a lot of skepticism to that. But you don't have to listen to us. Just investigate how you came up with that assumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
That didn't come out of nowhere, right? Like how did that assumption form? And what you'll find is most likely you modeled it off of other people and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. Because
Yeah.
whenever you're doing that, like having a little bit more of the negative side, I view it as just limiting yourself. There's times where skepticism is very necessary. But if it's all time, every day, you're overusing it like you would overuse anything. And
Yeah.
it's much better to always be a little bit veer on the positive side, from my experience, than veer a little bit on the negative side. Because if you do veer a
Mm.
little bit on the negative side, it's this energy of like conservation. Like, oh,
Yeah.
can't do that. Let me pull back there. So there's this communication model, which I still use to this day, called the DISC model, DISC model. And there's a certain type of communication which about 50% of the population has in some capacity, which is modeled off of the C in the DISC model. People like this, they have like a built-in devil's advocate like response, like a built-in mismatch pattern, which means that
Mm.
whatever you say, they'll just disagree with. Because for them, adding value to the competition, not the competition, the conversation, is by fact checking, stress testing arguments, all that kind of stuff. Now, when the reason why I bring this up is because with this communication style, it's great for all of the things that we mentioned above. What it's not good for is brainstorming, because it cuts down ideas before they've matured enough. It's not good for brainstorming. It's not good for doing something new. One of the core fears of this person with this communication style, more often than not, is they're afraid of getting things wrong. They're afraid of something new, which hasn't been tested, right? Now, why am I saying this? The reason why I'm saying this is because this is almost the energy of being a little bit negative.
Mm.
It's inherently limiting. It's good for defending what's already here, which is why you need it, where it needs to be integrated. What it's not good for is by trying something new. And if you're in the phase where you have to try something new, like move from the zone of excellence to the zone of genius, then this thing is not going to serve you. And what Cameron just brought out in this breakthrough he had with his client, where he had all this new possibility, but energy come up, that's not surprising at all. Because when you move out of this way of limiting yourself, you just have more energy. Why? Because you're not using all this energy to block yourself anymore, basically. That's what's
Yeah.
happening. And how that showed up for the people I was just talking about, the doctors, is they started their own business, you know? And this wasn't like oh, I quit my job and now I have to start my own business. You don't have to be stupid about this. They continued, built up a good amount of finances, and whilst they were still working as doctors, they were building their business on the side. And then when they were ready, they pivoted and they quit. And when they quit, they had all of the infrastructure there ready, available. So this is not just like, because sometimes what can happen is people be like, oh, but then I can just be stupid, or then I can just be foolish. Like I can just start something and then nothing will happen. Like I'll just be like, oh, I'll just quit my job and then I'm done. No, you can do this in a very strategical way. Trust me. These are two very different personalities, by the way, and they both did it in this same way. Okay, like one
Yeah.
was much more your kind of intuitive but more serious person. The other one was a much more kind of unstructured, still intuitive but unstructured, go with the flow type person. And they both built it like this. And then they went from doing a job which they had kind of enforced on them from other people. I'm sure you've had a ton of clients like this, where
Mm.
someone kind of has like a good job traditionally, like what is it, doctor, lawyer, engineer, tech, like one of these things. But really, when you get into the weeds of it, it's just because that's what was expected of them and what they thought that their parents would like, basically, right? If we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
So they moved from
Yeah.
that zone of excellence, if we want to call it that, into their zone of genius, and they made 10 to 20K in the first month or the first few months, or the second or third month. They made it in one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Full location independence, full independence on their own. They don't have a boss that they have to work with. I'm not saying having a boss is bad. It's just for these personalities, it wasn't really something that they really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And up until this day, that business is still running and they're still living off
That's
it,
amazing.
right?
Yeah.
But it comes from taking off those golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And where it comes from the people that I work with, and this is where we have overlap with Cameron, like I just talked about, those golden handcuffs are usually made out of self-imposed limitations.
Mm.
Like, oh, I can be good, but I can't be great. I can have some of it, but there has to be some trade-offs. If there's
Yeah.
some trade-offs, life is going to throw those at you. Like we don't have to artificially create them. Trust me, if life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, right, wants you to have limitations, there's going to be limitations. We don't have to have that meaning ourselves. We can go out
Yeah.
and explore that. And if we're going through a phase where it just seems like I just have to focus on this thing, then cool. But we don't have to have a core meaning, belief, or construct that we can't have it all fundamentally, and there has to always be trade-offs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great way of putting it. And I suppose it's just removing the assumption, right? It's like, I'm not going to hold an idea that there's a wall in front of me, but I'm also not going to hold an idea that there's not a wall in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk. And if a wall might appear, I will figure out how to navigate it,
Yeah. That's why
you know?
affirmations can be a little bit harmful, right? I'm not sure if you,
Right.
the reason why I follow that is because I was just at a Latin dance festival actually with a close friend, bachata festival. Just one of like the pastimes that I do, just to have fun and blow some steam. And there was a guy from England actually, from originally from Manchester, but he's lived there like 8 years in London, and then was in Istanbul, and he was like talking about affirmations basically, and probably what he needed to do at that time. I don't know him. I didn't know him too well, but the problems of affirmations is they'll get you to say there are no walls anywhere, when
Yeah.
in fact, like there are, but we just don't have to pre-anticipate them. So it can almost make you like be super naive or
Mm,
create a reality which is forced. Like there are no
yeah.
like the example, there are no walls anywhere. Well, that's not very helpful when there is a wall in front of you and you're just trying to
Yeah.
ignore it, basically.
Yeah.
Or even therapy or shadow work that really tries to, once an insecurity is healed, first of all, congratulations. But once an insecurity is healed, really tries to fill that space with something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is and a lot of the time clients want to fill that space and we have to be there and be like, hey, just chill out. Something's going to be there. Don't worry. I'm sure, I mean, you probably had to do it with the client you just worked with the breakthrough you were talking about, where we don't have to add anything there now that this
Yeah.
assumption, this construct is gone. What's actually much more powerful is allowing that space to fill itself.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And it creates such a big difference because if we look at the affirmation example, affirmation is like a bulldozer.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to bulldoze my way with life, and this is my belief. And I'm just going to have to make sure my belief is stronger than your belief or the outside world.
Yeah.
It's got to be stronger. So I'm going to have to say affirmations. So I'm blue in the face and I'm going to
Yeah.
push through until I can't push through anymore. And
Yeah.
then it's going to be a real crisis.
You had a phase of
But
affirmations years ago, right?
yeah, I've used them. And in moments of real challenge where you can't do complex system work, it's fully understandable to use them.
Yeah.
Just try and make them as true as possible with as little like being in delusion,
Yeah.
right? This isn't like the negative realistic frame that people use, like, but just try and make them as accurate as possible,
Yeah.
right? Something that's really like seeing a real strength in you.
Yeah.
I could be like, I have, I am strong enough to move through these challenges. Like this is just something which came up, and
Yeah.
that's adaptable to circumstance. That's not saying there's no walls, there's no challenges, just reinforcing that I am strong enough to move through it, right?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. That's much more adaptable than just saying there are no challenges. The way for me is smooth and easy, and there's nothing in my way. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. What happens if something does coming your way?
Yeah.
How are you going to navigate it, right? And
Yeah.
so it's a difference between bulldozing and being like water,
Yeah.
you know? The way I view it, especially when we go through that process that you described of you break a construct or you give away an interjectum, there's a space left behind, and we allow for what we can call essence or new consciousness, or just you don't have to even label it that, just whatever emerges to emerge. We're not putting something in, we're not replacing it with a belief, right? Which people can have a tendency to want to do. We're just letting it emerge. And what happens is it's much more flexible. It's much more, you know, it like water, where it adapts to the world. It
Hmm.
adapts to what's happening to the point where it it can't be broken.
Yeah.
It can't, it's not gonna meet a challenge that it breaks to. It's just gonna adapt to the container and move through it,
Yeah.
most likely.
Yeah.
And that's such a big difference when you orient from that place instead of just trying to kind of smash through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of a bit of a funny story when I was competing at the World Championships of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Long Beach, California. This was, I think, when was this? 2023, 2022, one of those years. I was in the purple belt division. There was some guy. So there's this area in just before you step onto the mats called the bullpen, which is where all the competitors stand. So you're standing right next to like the person you're gonna face, basically. And it's where everyone chills just before you go onto the mats to have your match. And there was this guy in there, like shouting out affirmations to himself, like "I am unstoppable," like all this kind of stuff, like really like cheesy kind of stuff. And he actually had the problem that you just said, which is there was no affirmation about, well, what happens if this is a tough fight? Like what
Mm,
happens then? Because all of his
right.
stuff was, oh, I'm unstoppable, like all I'm unbreakable, like nothing's gonna touch me, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But and just to let you know, guys know he lost first round, which gives
Right.
you, which was it's not exactly a feather in his cap to his method. But if we were to use this kind of funny example to illustrate what Kevin was just saying, there was no like leeway in there, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a real strong frame. It was a very hard frame, but anything that's hard is very brittle and it breaks very easily. So if your
Yeah.
whole mind is geared towards like this is I'm gonna be unstoppable, it's gonna be easy, all this kind of stuff, and then you get into a match and it's turning into a bit of a scrap, right? Same way with life, like it starts to turn into a bit of a scrap, like you're having maybe a tough month, tough couple of months. There's nothing in your constructs that have predicted that or primed you for that. You're just gonna break. And it
Yeah.
speaks to what Cameron was just saying, which is if you are gonna do that stuff, which maybe some people need, it needs to have that baked in. Now, the
Mm,
work that we do, that's already baked in. Because when
yeah.
you don't fill that space and you allow that fill to fill its space with a proper embodiment practice, which is what we get to all clients, then over time, your body's kind of natural internal ecosystem will fill that space with something strong,
Yeah.
right? Something that that
And
place is built for.
yeah, I suppose if we just break that down a little bit further,
Yeah.
using an example, it would be like, let's say we carry just this idea that we're not good enough. Let's say you're in a jiu-jitsu environment,
Yeah.
and one of the things you're fighting against is when you get in, you feel a sense of collapse because deep down you feel like I'm not good enough for this, I'm not worthy for this.
Yeah.
And then so what's happening is the pattern is collapsing to the point where you just live in that story, right? And so when you get to the competition, you collapse, you fail, you reinforce it.
Yeah.
now you do affirmations to kind of combat that collapse. It's a completely understandable thing
Yeah.
to want to do because it's
All of
tough.
this
You don't
is
want to collapse.
all of this
It's
is super
super
understandable.
understandable.
Yeah.
Like, of course you want to do that. Of course, if that's your only option and that's all you know about working with the mind, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. Like, it's the only thing you have, and you want to do well in competition, and it probably means so much to you,
Yeah.
right? That's tough. But anyway, if you're using that, it's not only is it a bulldozer, and when it meets real resistance, it's going to fail, it's also just a plaster on a huge wound that's already there, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we then take an ESR approach or a construct approach, and we actually go in and we really find the core map, right? Or the core seed of where we actually took on this idea to begin with.
Mm.
And most likely it's an introject, something we've taken on, and we give that back. And we get to that point that you were speaking about so beautifully of where we have the empty space, where we've broken the construct or we've given it away,
Yeah.
and there's the empty space. And then we notice what emerges from here. We're not putting a belief or an affirmation of, we're not even putting the idea of being good enough in,
Yeah.
because it does not matter. We're getting to the space where that is a question that's not even asked. Right?
Even
It
just
didn't even
asking that question implies that there could be a
implies,
possibility that you're not good enough.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A baby doesn't ask that question. A baby doesn't even conceptualize that there's a binary of good enough and not good enough. It doesn't
Yeah.
even enter its reality.
Yeah.
So what we can see from that is all created.
Yeah.
And so when we remove the original creation and when we witness what emerges, and that could just be a space
Yeah.
where you don't even ask a question, but it may be something else. It may be a wholeness, a deep peace, love. Could be any hundreds of different things that may emerge for you.
Hmm.
And these are all examples. And when you go through the experience yourself, you just witness and watch, not preempting or assuming what may be, but just watching and witnessing what might emerge for you.
Yeah.
And when that grows, when that nurtures, let's say it's a wholeness here for this person, and they go to the competition next time when it's really solid, it's been really embodied, right? But what happens is they don't need an affirmation. They don't need to tell themselves they're good enough. They just don't even question it.
Mm.
They go in and they don't collapse because the collapsing only came from a previous construct.
Yeah.
They're able to fight at their highest capacity.
Yeah.
And we don't know, maybe they'll win, maybe they're not. But now it will be down to their skills
Yeah.
instead of their internal world getting in the way. At least they're showing up in their highest capacity.
Exactly.
And it
Exactly.
won't be, and if they meet resistance, where their skills just haven't reached the right level where they're going to win,
Hmm.
right? Maybe they get through a couple of rounds and they get to the semifinals and they just meet a guy who's just really technical and really good and they lose.
Yeah.
They're not going to collapse afterwards.
No.
And it's like that difference between a bulldozer and water. When they're the bulldozer and the affirmations, they collapse. Their entire frame is destroyed, and they just completely collapse back to I'm not good enough.
Hmm.
But when it's this, it's just a skill thing, and that can be worked on. It's got nothing to do with being good enough. The question doesn't even get asked,
Hmm.
and that's what makes it strong.
Yeah. Exactly. And if you want to get to the genius level, you're going to have to get rid of the allegorical affirmations. You know,
Yeah,
that almost keeps you in the excellence level if we want to talk about it. So that could be good pay, that could be good time off of work, that could be respect from your family members, from your friends. There can be all types of stuff. Whatever these things that are keeping you there, they have to
yeah,
be at some point removed in order to get to the next stage. If that's what you really want, of course. You know, you can have a conversation with yourself like, is this okay for me? Maybe it is, right? But if something else is calling you, like it was for these two guys that I worked for, that I worked with, excuse me, then because for them, what I remember is there was like a couple of months they were in denial of what was
Right.
coming up for them. I'm not sure if you had this, probably, right? Where
Mm.
they're in denial about it. And there's one other guy who had the same thing as well. He was you know, he kind of did it, but for him it was different. It wasn't that he was working. He'd made enough money that he didn't have to work in this time period.
Mm.
But it was almost like, oh, like I do want to go back to work. I do want to do something. I do want to do something active. But there was a denial of that because he was so comfortable just chilling, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but with these two, it was like almost like like I can feel that something's coming up, but do I really have to do this? Do I really want to do
Yeah.
this? You know, I spent the best part of a decade trying to become a doctor, pretty much.
Yeah.
And this is finally, at least for one of them, this is finally a job where I feel like my parents can unequivocally respect it, which was a big deal
Mm.
for him, you know, because a lot of this stuff came from just how he was raised. Like, if you were to look at his parents from a developmental level, they'd probably be quite diplomat. So what is that? 2.0, 2.5, maybe 3.0, right? So very experty, very much like living the principles of like an organized society, more conservative, all this kind of stuff. So a doctor ticks all those boxes, basically. Doctor's an expert, it's a pillar of society, it's something which they can show off to their friends. It's something which they can look at and be like, I did a good job raising this guy. I did a good job raising this boy.
Mm.
That kind of energy. So he had to get rid of that. The other guy, it was more like denial because in order to, you know, completely change your career paths, you have to get focused and structured, basically. There's no way around it. And because he was so flowy, still a doctor, right? But much more in flow, much more taking stuff how it comes. His thing was almost like, oh, do I really have to take on more responsibility, take on more independence? But once that goes, it's almost like a grief period. Once that goes, the whole world opens up for you. So the
Yeah.
quicker you can get through that period, it's like for everything. The quicker you can get through that, like, oh, do I really want to do this kind of period? Is the quicker you can actually get to wherever you want to go, the ideal. Like being confident without having to do anything, feeling worthy
Yeah.
without having to even have anything about worthiness inside you, feeling good
Yeah.
enough without even having to ask the question, am I good enough? Just an inner knowing, you know? And it usually, don't be scared if it comes a little bit of apprehension, anxiety,
Mm.
a little bit like, oh, do I really want to do this? All that emotional cycle is, just let that be there. Don't rush it. Just let it be there.
Yeah.
And then something will emerge on the other side. I'm not sure if you have anything to say on that, Cameron, actually, because we haven't talked about that explicitly before.
Mm. Yeah. It kind of what arises for me is just the actual process of doing that. Because from what I know, you're not telling them what to do. You're not telling
No.
them they should do this, they should do that. It's not even a coaching session of, do you want to go and do that? Right?
Yeah.
It's almost just removing what might be getting in the way,
Yeah.
different patterns, the different constraints, and truly liberating them to the point where that arises organically, to
Hmm.
the point where that's just so in their face that, oh, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and start the business,
Yeah. It's
right? I'm going to
taking
go and
away
leave this.
the illusions, the mirrors, the smoke and mirrors inside of people. Obviously, you know, we're not just like grabbing them and taking them away. It's something that's
Yeah,
organically coming up. And you just subtract, subtract, and subtract. And then something, what is there remains,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And it's up to the person how they want to address that. And almost always it's in a very positive way,
yeah.
you know?
and it will be right for them, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Just as you subtract that, they just get brighter and brighter.
Yeah.
And then, in the same way that when we witness a construct breaking, an introject being given away, and we witness what emerges, it's kind of the same for us with clients if we just get to witness what they become
Yeah.
without knowing, and our job is literally not assuming it because we don't
Yeah.
know what's best for them,
Yeah.
right? We know the processes that are best for them. We don't know what's best for them to do, to be in life, to act, to show up.
Hmm.
And so one of the greatest gifts I think, and I'm sure you agree, is actually just being a little bit surprised and wowed
Yeah.
about what actually emerges organically for them without us saying anything or trying to push them in any direction, just
Yeah.
witnessing it with awe. And that
Exactly.
always is the most fun.
It's like, I mean, I guess we can kind of end with this. Like I'm sitting here in my apartment, I'm looking at the windows, and there's a plant right here. A good gardener can nurture that plant, can allow that plant to grow, can maybe even design it in certain ways, right? Through grafting and all that kind of stuff. And it knows what's best for the plant. It knows what soil, what temperature, what climate, what plants around it grow best, right? But if you were to ask this master gardener, like, what is this plant going to look like exactly when it grows? He's just going to laugh at you. Like, he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
This is the mindset that we take. And if for you listening, you should take when you're doing this work with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're
Yeah.
going to find a mentor, make sure they have this. Because we don't want to top down or force ideals, what something should look like, because we don't
Yeah.
know. All of this information, this education, your one-on-one work, your mentors, they know what's best for you. If you select them right, obviously, don't just trust anyone. If you select them right, they know what your best temperature, your best soil, your best climate, the best type of water to use, the kind of nutrients you need. They know all of this, but not for 1 second will they ever try and confine you to an idea of what they think you are. They'll allow you
Yeah.
to grow. That,
Yeah.
to me, summarizes the move from excellence to genius.